All right, welcome back to Wicked Auto. So today, Air Design hood scoop, fake hood scoop for 19 plus Sierras. So just pulled it out of the box, got this a couple of days ago, left it in the box, was waiting because I'm gonna paint match this frame part myself. Of course, got the paint from Automotive Touchup, but it's supposed to be delivered today. So went ahead and set up the sawhorses, pulled this out, and start the video. So this piece comes in two pieces. So this is the frame of it that sits on the hood itself. And then this is the scoop piece, the fake one, because no real vents, not actually doing anything, just sticking on top of the hood. But this sits in like that, and then there we go. Now, like I said, I'm gonna paint match the outer perimeter with the truck and just leave this piece black. So, hoping that it'll make it look a little more intentional. I'm not a fan, not going to be a fan, I know I'm not. Looking at other pictures that customers have posted on American Truck's website where I purchased this, showing how it looks on their truck. The height of this frame coming off the hood, it's just not great, in my opinion. It just didn't look, but I'm not going through the hassle of sticking this on and bondoing the outside to get it and leveling it to where it looks okay with the factory hood, and then this, no, just gonna stick the shit on. But paint's supposed to be here today, so we're gonna go ahead and start sanding this. That's gonna be the process. So this is smooth plastic. It's not a textured plastic like the AVS Lightshield is, which you could paint match that. I've seen Lone Star Hawaiian on his Silverado. He also did the Lightshield, but he paint matched his and just sanded off the texture and everything like that. It actually came out looking really well. I didn't. I like the black on the tan, so I left that. This is smooth, so I don't have to worry about taking off the texture before I paint it, but I just want to scuff it up to get the paint and all of that to stick better. So I'm going to use, what do I have here? I got 600 grit sandpaper that I'm going to hand sand this whole thing. I don't want to use power sander. I don't want to take off too much. I just want to scuff it up enough. Once I'm done sanding, of course you got to clean it and all of this, and I'll video it. But sand, clean, then adhesion promoter, which I did not get off of Automotive Touchup, but you can. I did not because it was out of stock, and they had said on there, didn't know when it was going to be in stock, so I just ran to O'Reilly's, it's the closest auto store to me, and got adhesion promoter. Then primer and lightly wet sanded. I'm going to use probably 1500 grit on that wet sanding on the primer just to make sure it's still perfectly smooth. Then paint from Automotive Touchup. They factory match your paint to anything. If you guys have been following along, then you know I've used it before. If you're new, I used it before on the fender flares for the F-150 that I did. You can check out the playlist. For the 19 F-150 build, it's in there of me painting the fender flares. The paint came out great on that. I'm going to use their paint again. Then after the paint, hopefully it looks great. There's no overspray, or not overspray, splatter from the nozzles or anything. If either way, probably going to wet sand that. Also 1500 grit. Then clear coat it. And I got the 2K Max clear coat. It has a hardener in it, so it is a realistic clear coat. It's not just the paint cans that say clear coat or the 1K that actually isn't anything. It has a hardener in it. It's the same clear coat I used on the F-150. I've actually used that clear coat on 2011 Gixxer 750 fairings that I redid. Don't have a video on it, but I redid those, used the same clear, it came out beautifully. So that's gonna be the process. So let's go ahead and get to work. All right, so now we're getting ready to sand it. So I started a little bit. So actually in the directions for this, it does come with paper directions. It does, on the last page, have instructions for painting this, if you so choose. It says to use 400 grit. I prefer, I mean, sanding is like a haircut, right? You can't, once you take off so much, you can't get it back. I'd rather start with a higher grit, see what it's doing before I go to a heavier grit that's going to take more off, right? Now, so I can see it scuffing it up. It's not so smooth and shiny anymore, right? But feeling it, it still feels really smooth. I can see that, and I mean, I'm getting it on my fingers, the plastic particles, I guess, but I don't know. Let's just I want to stick with the 600. It's still sanding it, still doing work, right? It should be good enough just to keep it as smooth as possible. I want a factory-like finish, right? Especially being on the hood, and as big as this piece is, I want it to look nice. So let's just keep sanding. I'm gonna speed this up for you. All right, so now that that whole thing is sanded, I actually want to get the top piece and set it in here to make sure I got enough of the grooves sanded to where the paint, if I don't paint it, it's not going to show, right? So I'll put it back in here to protect it from the paint. Centered. Good to go. Okay, cool. So now, next step, clean it off. As you can see, the dust from the plastic, it definitely gets in your hands there quite well. So clean it. So first I'm just gonna use a old shop rag to wipe all the black off. Then I'm gonna go ahead and use soap and water, clean this off, and we'll see where we're at. So now we have this sanded. Saw me do that. Wiped it off with a red shop rag so I can just pitch it. Then clean it off with soap and water. Just Dawn dish soap in a spray bottle. Then I use my Geon Prep instead of isopropyl alcohol. I prefer this. I use it for when I'm detailing my truck and my wife's Durango. Geon Prep smells good too. I mean, not that that matters, but I'd rather some cleaning product smell good than completely burn the shit out of your nose or something like that. So Geon Prep, I love this stuff. Actually got that from watching Pan the Organizer, his detail channel. He's pretty good. If you could enjoy detailing vehicles, go check out his channel. But now that it's clean, I have not touched it again, of course. Now we have plastic adhesion per motor. So like I said, I did not get it from Automotive Touchup, where I got the paint, because they were out of stock. I would have preferred that, but especially over this. This is Duplicolor. So granted, they're supposed to be a good automotive paint matching company as well. I'm not the biggest fan of Duplicolor. I'm really not. So this is all that O'Reilly's had. This is the only adhesion promoter that they had. So that's what I got. I'm not too worried about it. It's just an adhesion promoter. It's not like it's the paint or something like that. So let's start. Shake it up for a couple minutes. Ball move freely and all of that stuff. And then we're going to spray on the primer. Now, while I continue to do this, actually, so I'm not going to end up painting from this little ridge right here back. It's completely covered by the vented top piece, the scoop actual part, but I'm also not going to tape it off because I'm not worried about anything getting on it, right? As long as I keep it clean for when I put the scoop on, as long as it's clean, it doesn't matter the surface that it's sticking to, right? It's just 3MT. So that I'm not worried about. An overspray, I'm gonna try not to spray it on purpose, of course, but a little overspray I'm not worried about. Okay, so can shook up, got the little handle for the spray gun. It does make it a lot easier. So we're gonna go ahead and spray on the plastic adhesion promoter. Rule of thumb, do as I say, not as I do. Respirator, whatever, I'm in an enclosed space. Spraying this, I should be wearing a respirator, which I absolutely will for the clear coat. The paint and stuff, I'm not really worried about it. But like I said, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so we just did a very light coat, obviously. The first one, I mean, you can't see it anyway, but you can see like the moment it hits, you can see it glisten and then it dries. The glisten is gone. Let me say that. But you just want a nice little, very light tacky coat on the first one, period. Doesn't matter if it's paint, adhesion promoter, primer, whatever the case is. Doesn't matter what the hell you paint either. Just a very light tacky coat. That's it for the very first one. The same thing actually goes for Plasti Dip or Hyper Dip, whichever one you want to use. Same thing goes for them. Very light coat, like spotty. If you can see it, you want it spotty. You don't want complete coverage the very first coat. So we're gonna let that sit for a minute and then spray it again. Now this one is going to be a full coat from here on out. Okay, so now it's saying, between the coats on the can says for this adhesion promoter, 3 minutes in between coats, and of course make them light coats. Well, it hasn't been quite 3 minutes, but with the first extremely light coat, you don't have to wait the 3 minutes for it to get tacky enough that you can add another layer. So let's go ahead and do it, and again, this one is going to be a full coat. You still don't want it to be extremely heavy. You don't want any runs or anything like that. Just a nice, thorough coat. And let's start with this real quick. In between coats and stuff like that, reshape the can and test spray on. I'm using old Amazon box. Just spraying the side of it, make sure any splatters off before I come to the part that I'm painting. The edge. Always 8 to 10 inches and a nice sweeping motion. You want nice even coverage. Okay, so that was the edge, now the top piece. Now, this groove, I want to get there, so I'm going to get a little overspray in here. Again, no big deal, it's going to be covered. Okay, so now we're going to wait a couple minutes before adding the next coat. Now for the adhesion promoter, I'm just going to do 2, right? So the full coats. So that's the first one. I'm just going to do 1 more on top of this, and then we're good to go. But like I said, let it dry a couple minutes, reshape the can, spray it on a box, paper, whatever, right before you come to this to make sure any splatter or anything like that is off, and then come back to the part. Let's wait. Within 10 minutes of spraying this. So let's go get the primer. Okay, so ready to do the primer. I already shook the can up. So this one is actually Krylon. So Duplicolor did not have a plain primer at O'Reilly's that I was at, but I like Krylon better as an aerosol can, period. I like their finish and paint better than I do Duplicolor. So I was happy to find the primer. I was irritated that they didn't have the adhesion promoter there. But again, it's just adhesion promoter, no big deal. So again, I'm going to use this. Now with the primer, it's just a minute between coats. I'm just going to do 2 coats again of the primer. Now the paint, I'm going to do 3. I'm going to do 2 coats adhesion, 2 coats primer, 3 coats paint, 2 coats clear. So let's go ahead and get started. Now this is a gray primer. I figured they had a gray or a black. That was the primer there, period. And being a tan, I wanted a lighter color prime underneath. I didn't want black. I didn't want it to mess with the shade of the paint. But I already test sprayed it on the cardboard box right before I came into the video. So let's get started. Again, first coat, very, very light. Just to get it on there. Okay, so the edge is done, and you can still see, I'm hoping in the camera that it picks it up, there's still black showing through on the edge. I didn't completely cover it, and that's what I'm talking about. On the very first coat, period. Okay, now the edge here. Not enough got inside on that one. Okay, now, like I said, a minute to do the actual full coat. And then, again, before you start painting again, shake it up again. Test spray on something junky that you can test spray on, then come back and do this. Now, I'm hoping this comes out on the camera here. You can still see the black in through this. It's not full coverage. You'll see it once I spray the next coat, what I mean. I'm hoping that it comes out on the camera that you still see all the black. Again, this part doesn't matter, it's gonna be covered, right? All right, we'll be back. Okay, now the full coat, right? So again, edge first. Now you notice my hand's moving a little bit slower because now I'm getting a thicker, fuller coat. So now it needs to look nice, right? Can't just not spray every inch. Can't overspray. That first tacky coat can go a little quicker because you don't want full coverage. Okay, so that's the first full coat. Obviously, I'm hoping now you can see the difference. Gray here, right, for the primer color. There is no black showing through anymore. Now, I didn't point out before, so I raised this up, so obviously I can get the edge. I just put 2 little square 2x4 blocks that I had, 2 up front, 2 in the back to raise it up off the box so I can get the edges clear. So now, another minute for it to dry, and we're back again. Okay, so done with the primer. Like I said, so adhesion promoter, very extremely light coat, 2 full coats. Primer, very extremely light first coat, 2 full coats. So now just let this dry a couple hours. So I don't know if I'm gonna finish this tonight. It's already just dinner time. So probably gonna let this go till tomorrow and then check it out. Probably wet sand, any consistencies, high spots. So there's a little piece of fuzz right there. So that's gonna need sanded out. There's one right there, which doesn't make sense because it's a freaking closed, there's no ventilation whatsoever. Drives me nuts. So that's what I mean though. That's what the wet sanding's for. So wet sand like spots like that tomorrow. Get it completely smooth, make it look really nice, and then paint it. So we'll be back at that time. All right, so went ahead and sanded with somebody's help last night. Go ahead and get it smooth. So it is like a baby's butt. It is absolutely perfectly smooth. But now we're ready to paint, right? So now it's time to clean it off. Like I said, isopropyl alcohol, or I'm gonna use my GM Prep. Spray it all. This, as you can see, like there's a white mark. This is just the overspray in from sanding. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe that all up, get it off for now, and let's wipe it off. So now that's clean, I gotta redo my boards here. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry a little bit more, a couple minutes. Make sure there's no moisture left on there before we throw paint on it. And then it's time to paint. Of course, I got, like I said, from Automotive Touchup. So you just put in your paint code on their website for whatever vehicle you have and order it. Aerosol cans, gallon cans, there's like 6 different options on how to get the paint that you want. Let's go ahead and let this settle for a minute and then we'll start painting. Okay, so somebody wanted to help. So the handle does not fit on this can. This is not high enough. So using without the handle, but again, like everything else, a very, very light, just speckled coat first. Good. So I guess I'm doing it. This button's too much.
I can't. It's so hard.
So like I said, light khaki coat. On the edge now. And then do the top. There. Now the inner channel. Let that dry. What's their directions say? 1 to 2 minutes. Oh, sorry, 5 to 10 minutes between coats. So we'll be back. All right, so I've already done 2 or 3 coats. So I did the bottom initial coat, right? And then 3 full coats. I'm gonna go ahead and do a 4th just because the paint is still very light it's not shaded right to me, in my opinion. See, fuzz already went, and again, no ventilation. But at least I got it off instead of getting it stuck in the paint. But, so our last final coat, let's go ahead and spray this on, and then we're just gonna let it sit. Now this can, so Automotive Touchup, right? Their directions for their spray can. So I can go ahead and put the clear coat on per them 30 minutes after my final coat. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer than that. But their instructions are a little misleading. So on the application, it says, any imperfections should be lightly sanded with 1000 grit or finer sandpaper before applying another base coat. Then, right below that, it says, important, do not sand between coats. What? Don't sand between coats. I mean, you can if you want. I don't. I wait till the end, right? As long as you know there's nothing on your paint in between coats, then you should be fine, right? So I just had a little fuzz right there, wiped it off so it doesn't get stuck with a new coat. So right here, we're pretty good. I mean, it's not baby's butt smooth, but that'll be done after the final coat when I wet sand before the clear, right? That's when you want to sand. Already shook it up, test sprayed. Let's go ahead and spray this. Edge, top, inner. So I get perfect coverage the whole way around. Now I will say something about the spray can. The splatter is kind of bad. Like in between each one I have to wipe the nozzle. I think I can already hear it again. You can tell but just by listening if it's starting to splatter a little bit. And of course, the lower you get on your can, the more it's going to, depending on the angle that you hold it at. All right. So we're done. No more paint. I still have a little bit left in this can, so you can see how big this piece is, right? Let's, just for video's sake, so this is 32, roughly 32 inches wide, 32 inches long, okay? And I didn't do any of this, right? Just this piece on the outside trim, and I'm almost empty on one can. There's probably, feeling it, probably maybe down to here if you could measure the can, probably about there. So just if you're looking to paint your own factory parts, you know, you have an idea of how much paint you're gonna need, because it does take some time to get the paint. Ordering it from them, it took about a week and a half. From them getting it, making it or whatever, and then it coming to me. And I did pay for upgraded shipping, by the way. But we're done, let it sit. I'm probably gonna wait hour, hour and a half, and then clear cut it. We'll be back then. All right, so it's had time to dry. It's not sticky or tacky at all. Yep, we're good. The whole thing perfectly dry. So now comes the wet sanding to get it perfectly smooth right before we put on the clear coat. So 1500 grit wet or dry sandpaper. That's all I'm gonna do, and lightly scrub over it. So I have a little bowl full of water to soak this, and then I have a spray gun with water to really soak the part itself. You don't want it to be dry at all while you're using the sandpaper, or you're taking too much off, right? So you can feel it when it's wet. This is wet, right? You can feel it as you're going, that it starts off a little rough, and you don't want to be pressing real hard either. Just lightly run this across. You can feel the resistance as you're wiping it, and then you can feel it get easier as long as this is completely soaked. And your sandpaper, completely soaked. You can feel it. If it's not completely soaked, it's gonna stay rough, and that's because you're actually sanding away too much of the paint. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna speed this up for you. That feels really good. Really good. All right, let's go ahead and dump all the water off, dry it, then clean it off, then we're ready for a clear coat. Okay, so now we are ready for the clear coat. Dumped all the water off, dried it off, use my Geon Prep, or you can use isopropyl alcohol and clean it off. All the fingerprints, dust, anything grime that's left from the wet sanding. Clean it all off. It is perfectly clean. Now it's time for this. So, like I said, I'm using Max 2K Clear. You shake it for 2 minutes, then pop the red cap out of here, push it in to release the hardener into the can, shake it up for another 2 minutes, and you're ready to spray. So I've already done that part, and we're ready to spray. Now, with a clear coat, especially with a hardener, absolutely wear a respirator. You don't want to be breathing this stuff in. So this one, I actually have one. This part, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Speed this up for you. All right, so we sprayed the first one. I'm just pulling this up just a little bit so you can hear me. Just sprayed the first very light coat, right? So we're gonna wait a couple minutes, come back and do a full coverage coat. And for anybody that wants to be in the comments, I'm fully aware that this does not fully seal because I have a beard. But it does help extremely. I don't smell anything with this on. We'll be back. Okay, so now that mine is painted, I decided to paint match it myself. But it's painted, sanded, buffed. I think it actually looks really, really good considering it's all from an aerosol can. So now it's time to go ahead and install this on the hood. So first, we need to take our spray, whether it's something like the Geon Prep that I had, or just isopropyl alcohol. You're gonna wanna clean this inner ridge here to go ahead and set the actual scoop itself. So go ahead and do that. Get this all wiped. Get it ready to stick. You don't want any dirt, grime, fingerprints, oils, anything like that. And of course, me buffing after the paint, I want to get all that extra off that I perhaps didn't get already. Okay, all wiped, dried. So now, actually, need to get a pair of tweezers. So that's what I use because I can never get it with my nails. The red backing on the 3M adhesive, I can never get it with my nails. So I always just use a pair of tweezers. It's easiest for me. You need the tweezers. Or you can use a knife. If you have the fingernails, you can get it. Before we start peeling, let's get it set to where we want it to make sure it's even, whole way across, front, the back. Pushed up. It's about even there. Okay, so now you're going to take your tape and line up where it is, right? To make it easier when the 3M is about to stick, make it easier to line up. Same cleaner rag that you had used, because I'm about clean, I want to keep it clean, so I'm not going to use my hands. So just take the rag and push hard on it the whole way across each edge so the 3M sticks down to the ridge that it's sitting in, right? Front. already got some dust on it. Wipe it down. Okay. So now this is ready to be test fit to the hood. So what you want to do, so again, you want tape or a grease marker, whatever. So I'm gonna say this would be easier with 2 people, but you grab it from both sides, set it on the back, and try to eyeball it to make sure it is correct. Now, actually, to make it easier, so this will help you with the back a little bit. So on the corners here, it has this little ridge. So the 3M is flush with the back. It sits on the hood. Both corners do not have that. So you can hook it on the back side of your hood there. So that way it's centered where it needs to be lengthwise. Okay. Now, just because I'm a little OCD, I'm gonna take a tape measure and make sure that from the edge of each, we're good to go. These little rubber channels. Okay, that's where you want to put the adhesive that came with the kit. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this cleaned up. Clean the whole thing. Just because again, OCD. Now, a little more directly on the rubber. I'm gonna use my finger here to make sure I'm in the channel. Okay, now that that's all cleaned off, I'm going to go ahead and start the 3M, peel back the 3M backing before I put down the adhesive, because I don't want to, like right here I'm resting my hand on it, I don't want to get my hand in the adhesive. Peel all these back. And these are curling, so we're going to go ahead and take some tape and stick it to the outside so we can pull it when we're done. Could have saved that other piece, huh? All right. This last front one here. Okay. So now for the adhesive. This is when you're going to use your caulking gun, right? So it comes like this piece on top. Okay, take that off. So you got to puncture that down in there, use the end. Adhesive, okay? So now you screw that on. And with this, you don't actually have to cut the end like you would traditional caulking or something like that. It already has a hole in it. Screw that on. Pop this off. This metal piece. That's going to go in here. Pull that back. Stick it in there. And now you're ready to put the adhesive on. And again, in the rubber channel the whole way around. Put that to the side. So that is ready to put on. So, last step, whichever order you prefer, I guess. My last step is to clean the hood, right? I want a clean surface for this to sit on. This is, again, isopropyl alcohol or something like Geon Prep, where it's gonna get all the oils and all that off. Got it on my windshield here. Okay, got that cleaned off. Now, let's put it on the hood. You want to be careful, don't stick your fingers in the adhesive, of course, right? Let's pick this up. Grab it from the edge on both sides, very lightly. Okay. Got it to the back. Don't set it down, try to get your tape lined up. Okay, it's good. Is it? Okay, you go ahead and push it. Let's go ahead and get the tape off the hood. Take that same rag and push down the whole way around. Tape residue off of there. Okay, now all that's left is let it sit in the sun. All right, let the 3M adhere to the hood, the adhesive dry. So I would recommend not driving this. Don't be washing it, trying to pressure spray it or pressure wash it in any way, shape, or form. I'd probably say for at least a day with the washing. The driving, I'd be fine to drive this evening just to give the 3M and adhesive time to dry. So what do you guys think? I think it actually looks really good. I was a little worried about the ridge. It's actually not bad. Not bad at all. What do you guys think about the paint? It's pretty freaking close, especially for an aerosol. There it is. Like, subscribe. We see you guys for the next one.